Welcome to Improv Your Parenting, the art of turning parenting into playing.
Today we have the opportunity to talk to Robin Fox, a public school special educator for 40 years. She's a social, emotional learning SEL specialist, trauma-informed teacher, and trainer, expert, education witness, lifelong meditator, consultant, speaker, and professional improv actor. Robin is a member of the state of Connecticut's SEL Collaborative and partners with the Connecticut Department of Education and other state agencies on SEL presentations and anti-bullying projects. Robin received a federal education grant to write Trust Talk, Teen to Teen, a non-defensive communication brain science and safe gun storage program with a video component. Her book, Social Eyes Together, helps students navigate social and emotional challenges using applied improvisation, mindfulness, and social cognition. Robin, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
I'm going to start off the conversation same way I start them all, which is what interaction do you have with kids and what role does improv play in those interactions?
I had the good fortune of being in education for 40 years and been around a lot of kids from little ones to college age.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I have the additional joy of having my own grandchildren and shared grandchildren with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Between us, we have 6 grandchildren, ages 2 to 10.
Wow.
Now I am in schools once a week with middle school and high school students doing improv.
How fun.
Lucky me. And I would say that improv my whole life, not just with kids, with adults too. So it's kind of a continuum. I'm an improv person because the training I studied for 5 years with Iris Sokolsky in Connecticut, who studied with Paul Sills, son of Jill Bowen. He was very, very exacting on how he taught us. And it really changed my way of being in the world.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so we were performing the Essex Steam Train. Crazy. We were doing of shows on a train car.
Okay.
And I remember once after performance, we were riding home and he said something like, I was in the back seat, and he said something like, Robin, are you aware of how disconnected you are from the audience?
Huh.
And it devastated me.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was doing improv. What do you mean connected with the audience? And then I realized I had this wall up between me and everyone, not just the audience when I was performing. Because improv is a really great informal assessment of how you present yourself to the world, how you interact with the world, and how you value yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your flexibility, your creativity, all of that. Improv is so rich with information as we perform. And actually, I use it as an informal assessment with students to see if they're meeting their goals and objectives for different things. And the thing that it really taught me when he said that, hurtful as it was, our best teachers are the ones that sometimes bring us to our knees,
Mm-hmm.
was my fear. I was afraid. Now, I could have been afraid of many, many things, being judged. Probably being judged is the biggest thing. The fear of the other prevents us from being fully present. Whether that fear stems from insecurity, from our own vulnerabilities that we don't want to share with people. We're afraid of what might come out of our mouths, how people might interpret us. If we don't have a solid sense of our own connection to the part of us that trusts ourselves and has access to our own inner wisdom, then we are going to not feel comfortable sharing with people. I'm not saying don't have boundaries. Boundaries are wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go there. This isn't appropriate, whatever. But within that, there is so much of ourselves we can share. The more we share, the more we're open with children, audiences, each other, the deeper our experience of life.
Wow. It sounds like you had that lesson relatively early on then. How old would you say you were at that time, maybe?
15 years ago.
Oh, okay. So not that early, more recently than that, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Robin in the year 2000, and once a week, we had our rehearsals, not rehearsals, our lessons. After 5 years, we were a troupe for about 10 years.
Wow. It sounds like you had a lived experience, had kids, and then had this it would be fascinating to hear how that shifted the way you interacted with the world, particularly with your kids, once you had that, oh, I need to be more open sort of epiphany. I guess not epiphany, but lesson.
Kind of an epiphany.
Yeah.
That's an appropriate word. The things don't happen in these huge changes. It's subtle. We change, we notice something about ourselves. I love to process feedback that I think is true by my own feedback. I didn't like the way it felt when I said that. And decide, how do I want to be going forward? I don't want to be that person who says mean things to feel better about themselves, or who says things that make other people feel uncomfortable as a joke. When I see somebody doesn't take it as a joke, I don't want to be that person. So instead of berating myself, which I used to do, what I do now is make it constructive. Feel it. That didn't feel good. And let the feeling go through me, whatever it is, shame, embarrassment, whatever the feeling is that's uncomfortable. I really try to open up to it so it flows through me, because emotions are in motion. It has the word right in there. Emotion, unless we block them. And then when we block them, we are setting ourselves up for not being able to trust ourselves. And with what is going on inside of us, we're going to be hiding that and defending it. So we're not really truly open to what's going on. So I'd say slowly I started changing, and I still was protective, and I could see that I wasn't fully present, and it takes a lifetime to become fully present if that's a goal. I don't think that just happens because, oh yeah, no, I should be more present. And, or people just say, well, just breathe. It's like, don't tell me to breathe. I
breathe all the time, David.
breathe, but it's us being into ourselves. And so I use improv as a emotional growth tool.
Wow.
Self and for others. So
it's not just about fun and games on stage then with you. It's about how it influences your lived experience.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Sure.
I would love to dive into that further. How has your life changed with that recognition?
Because improv at its best requires us to be a blank slate, but have access to lived experience at the same time. It's such a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Why? What makes it so great?
Because it means that you're not planning the next thing, because you're receiving from your partner or who's ever on stage their contribution. And that requires you to be present and really absorb it and co-create. It's not going to go in the direction I wanted it to go, so I'll go here. That kind of length, and wisdom to trust yourself to respond. That builds momentum, that builds connection, that builds to a really enjoyable experience for the actors. And obviously, if you're having a good time, the audience is
Yeah. So many things you brought up there, I could see related to interacting with kids, because you talked about, one, trust yourself, see what's going on, see what they're offering, and respond to that thing in the moment without that planning. Can you talk about how those lessons have then affected your interaction with kids, what it is you've done with that training, with that learning?
Sure. Let's say you have an agenda to get your kids out and ready for school in the morning, and the kids are dawdling or just, wanting to stay in bed or whatever. How do you let that be okay in terms of that's where they're at, and yet get the goal of what you want to happen, which is to get them up, dressed, brushed teeth, fed, out the door.
Every parent's nightmare.
Great. Send them off in a good headspace.
Yeah.
And play is the answer.
How do you do that? How do you play into that?
I was just in San Diego with my daughter, my 5-year-old and 7-year-old granddaughter. I was charged with getting them ready for school. My daughter had an early meeting. Her husband was in Germany for work. My grandson was in bed. He didn't want to get up. And my granddaughter was doing something else. The night before, we had watched a show, and it had, episodes. So they were short little episodes, but they kind of were sequential. So I announced episode 1, Cora and Wesley getting ready for school. Who knows what happened? They both perked up and looked at me, and Wesley said something like, Wesley's getting out of bed. Or I think I even narrated, and Wesley's refusing to get out of bed. Mimi doesn't know what to do. So let's stay tuned and see what's going to happen. So what happened is that it became a game. It became playful. They wanted the next episode. But the next episode, they had to get out of bed to see what they're doing to go to the next episode. So I narrate, and actually I fell off the narration because they were being so cooperative and they were doing everything telling them. And Wesley said, Mimi, we're on episode 3. What's happening?
That's glorious. They started owning the game.
Packs are all ready for the
Wow. That's so cool.
going in another direction when they said episode 3. They went back to bed and refused to get playful. And so it's not the end that would go along with the titles of the episodes they made. So I title the episode and they get the content. That's the whole thing of tension meeting a solution.
Yeah.
Here's the title. They brushed their teeth and washed their faces and put their clothes on. There could be resistance, but even the resistance can be made into a game and made fun.
How would you do that?
If Wesley had done something like episode 3, they're supposed to be getting ready for school, but Wesley decides he wants to play with his stuffy. So maybe turn it into a song. Wesley didn't want to go to school today, wanted to play with his favorite stuffy anyway. And so just to pull them out of the routine, play does that, whether it's singing, moving your body, or an intellectual exercise like creating episodes for a series. Being playful is probably the most beautiful thing, the most beautiful gift we can give each other and our children.
How, as a parent and as a grandparent, how would you be able to take that playfulness and sustain it? Because one of the challenges that a lot of people interacting with kids have is I'm exhausted. I don't have a lot of energy after, whatever it is I did today. So how could you sustain that? How do you build on that to keep coming back to it and be playful when needed?
That is such a good question. And my mind's going on different levels to answer that. It really is important. Yes, I'm the playful Mimi who comes up with fun things to do and games. So yes, I am not your typical parent. I suggest front loading your day, front loading each experience with an expectation and getting to that place where you're willing to be with them, to really connect with them. So sometimes there's that whole thing of when a child is having a hard time, do they want to be heard, hugged, or helped? And if you ask that, okay, so that's a way to connect and meet them where they are. And I have another one, which is just hang out. Because sometimes they just want somebody to be there. They don't want to be heard. They don't want to be helped. They don't want to be hugged. They just want your presence, your proximity. So I would say that front loading it by giving of yourself seems like a lot of work, but it will save you work in the end because it won't escalate into something else. So taking the time to sit on the floor with them and say, I'm here with you. What do you need right now? And just getting connected with them. Because yes, play doesn't work all the time. It works a lot of the time, but not all. And when it doesn't work, I think compassionate empathy will get us to where we want to go.
Yeah. You talked about getting on the floor with them and offering presence, offering space. What are some other things that you can do with kids where the maybe high energy, maybe play, maybe game isn't the thing we need right now, but yet they need you? How do you give of that without making it fun, joyous, but yet still interactive and present?
I think just being yourself and having the intention of being present, open, there for them will guide you to the next step. I don't think there's a formula for this, except maybe that's the formula. Because that action is going to be different. But when I was teaching, I was a special education public school teacher. They would give me all the really difficult cases because I loved that. I have a degree in psychology as well, and I was going to become a clinical psychologist, but I decided I'd rather be in an environment that wasn't isolated one-on-one. And invariably, no matter who it was, no matter how heightened they were, and other people were afraid of kids that I would be in a room alone with, and I wasn't afraid because I knew 100% I was there for them. I communicated that, not so much in words, because words are less believable than presence and action. And my go-to question is not what's wrong with this kid, but it's like, what happened to this kid? What's going on with this kid? because there's
Yeah.
usually a story behind the resistance. There's usually some reason why. Now, it could be that they prefer to be at home than school, but sometimes it may be because school's not a safe place for them. And sussing all that out takes
Mhm.
you being present and having the child trust you that you are worthy of their deepest fears.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a strong amount of empathy there. And you specifically mentioned you were not even really asking what's wrong with this kid, because that seems like the wrong question. It was more of what does this person need? And how could we make this space safe for that need? Is that closer to what you were getting at?
When kids start to misbehave in a classroom,
Hmm.
I'd often go up to them and say, "Hey, what do you need right
Hmm.
now? It feels like you probably could use something else that's not happening here."
Yeah.
And if you ask that sincerely, not as a punishment, not, "Hey, go take a walk," or whatever, I'm going to
Yeah.
gently ask that. Even if they say, "I don't know," there is still a change that happens within them
Mm.
because we're moving them from their amygdala and that fight, flight, or freeze to the prefrontal cortex, where now their brain is communicating in ways that are much more regulated. And as soon as you ask a child a cognitive question that they are willing to think about, you have shifted their energy.
Yeah. I'm sure you know of this model where the brain flips, where you have the amygdala, and then when you start freaking out, it switches. Yeah, exactly. And
Danny Siegel.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I constantly think of that, particularly with my kids, when I recognize, oh, we flipped. How do we
Yeah.
get you to a place where we can flip back, or at least unflip? Okay.
To recognize when they start to go offline a little bit. Because once
Yeah.
it's almost like keep them safe until it passes, because
Yeah.
you're not going to reach their prefrontal cortex when here's their amygdala and here was their prefrontal cortex. Now it's so far away that there's no communication happening. This is definitely led by that her emotion has now controlled their body.
Hmm.
So if they can recognize it, and if you can recognize it, and find ways. So this is the brain, nice and happy. Everybody's communicating inside your skull. Then somebody says something that pisses you off, and it's like, "What?" And if you don't regulate back, the next person comes along, perceived through insult or mistaken interpretation of something somebody said, but they go like this. Dr. Daniel Siegel says, "You flip your lid. And once you flip your
Yeah.
lid, you're gone." You see it with adults. You can't reason with somebody who's emotionally dysregulated.
How do you brought this into schools, use these lessons of improv to help with that regulation, to help with training on working in these environments and working with these kids?
I always incorporate a mindfulness piece into
Mhm.
my improv groups. I call them social improv groups, and the work I do is most of the activities are in my book, Social Eyes Together. I pick my favorite ones of cognitive awareness exercises, like being aware of how you're thinking about yourself and about the world, and then mindfulness exercises. The mindfulness exercises and I have a number of them that I've made up and some I've borrowed from other people. I try to get their bodies involved. So there's one called a breath conductor that I made up, which is just we choose somebody, we talk about, well, what is a conductor of a railroad? Well, they are the one who drives people or not drives, but, lead people to the place they want to go. Okay, so you're going to be a breath conductor and you're going to lead people. And we take turns and they just use their arms and they breathe in and then they hold it and then they breathe out slower than they breathed in. And everybody in the group follows that. And they take turns being the breath conductor. And what happens is that when we are consciously taking breaths, it calms our vagus nerve, which tells the rest of our body that we're safe and all is okay. And I want to propose that feeling safe is a prerequisite for any kind of learning,
Yeah.
or maybe processing any kind of learning, feeling safe.
Yeah.
And it accelerates our ability to take risks, which you have to do when you learn. You have to, if you're learning something, you don't know it yet. So, of course, you are more likely to make a mistake.
Mhm.
So we get kids comfortable making mistakes with, exercises like ta-da, which is a game where you take turns alternating counting to three. So it's like We could do it right now. So let's just
Okay.
count to 3. So 1,
2,
3.
4, 1, 3.
And whenever we make a mistake, everybody goes, "Oh,"
Ta-da! Because I almost did. I almost went to 4. So we could have ta-da.
or we would
Yeah,
have ta-da had I.
exactly.
And then we replace the 1 with a clap. So it's
Yeah.
and then claps
Mhm.
3, and then you're going to make mistakes. And
Yeah.
we made it ta-da. 'Cause a lot of kids, especially kids who are neurodiverse and have had profound lack of success in a typical classroom, socially, and maybe even academically,
Mm.
making mistakes is a shame. It's an embarrassment. It's all
Yeah.
of those things, but you don't learn unless we make mistakes and then figure it out. So between the mindfulness and celebrating mistakes and also just playing some of the activities successfully, you need to let go of a lot of the ways that you usually have been habituated to be in the world.
Mm.
And that is the awareness, self-awareness, the group awareness, the social awareness. And the beautiful thing is that when kids are involved in an improv activity and it's fun, they are really willing to let go of a lot of the walls, a lot of the veils between them and other people. And they're having fun. And then you point out to them, what made that fun?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when they tell you, it's like, yeah, and that could be with all your relationships. Improv really is just a model for how to be in the world.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And I could see that. I mean, particularly with my kids, they had such a difficult time in school that there is a fear of making mistakes. And that has actually impeded new learning because they don't want to make a mistake in what they don't know, but they don't know anything yet until they learn. Being able to have that sort of freedom to celebrate mistakes and then to build on that I can be in this space and go beyond where I'm comfortable, go beyond what I've been told or what I tell the world about myself into something I don't even know is here. That sounds really cool for them. How do you help the kids kind of get to that place where they're like, whatever it was in the past or whatever is in my brain, I'm going to set that aside for now because I'm doing this and this is fun.
Yeah, sometimes it takes some students a few sessions to get comfortable. Other
Mhm.
students, a few months of weekly sessions to get comfortable. Usually by March, even the most recalcitrant students are on board.
Yeah.
Feeling more zealous than any other students because they didn't want to do this at all. Now they want to form an improv troupe, or
The converts. Yeah.
I would think that fun is spontaneous.
Mhm.
That spontaneity exists in the creative magic of relationships. And
Mm.
when you experience that, it's like, a elixir. It goes to a part of you that maybe you weren't open to before, or maybe you had as a child and experienced that sense of play when you just lost yourself with friends and there was no judgment and you guys created something that was amazing. It is, really so satisfying and enjoyable. It transcends time and space. And once we transcend time and space, we are in the now,
Mm.
solidly in the now where the magic is.
Mhm.
We are transformed by that experience. We are different after we experience.
And so to be able to offer that to adults who may not have gotten to play very much lately, however long it's been since they've been in that now, how would you sort of reintroduce play to them in a safe way for them? Because often adults struggle with being okay to play again.
I think it's the same as for children because we really are all children in adult bodies. So is carried out through us. If I close my eyes, I don't know what age I am.
I'm
I
still
don't
very much a 5-year-old, but
Good for you. But I think, just in conversation can be improv. You can be playful in conversation. My husband and I will play a lot. If you find the game inside the play, then all of a sudden you've gone from just an ordinary conversation to riffing on something.
yeah.
And that's improv. So when I'm with people and if they're at all open, so they have to feel safe, they have to trust the people they're with. But once that happens and you start becoming playful in the way that you respond to people, so instead of just responding in a, factual way, to be a little playful, then you can start building towards this element of play becoming predominant. And then you can use some of the improv exercises and games that we play naturally within a relationship.
So it doesn't even need to start with a game. It doesn't need to start with a structured thing. It could just start with being a little cheeky.
Yeah, being play.
Yeah, being playful. I like that because that seems like a low barrier to entry, particularly for a lot of adults who more often than not might take themselves seriously. And how, it's what, say somebody, and I don't want to disparage bankers, but say somebody was a banker for a very long time, always wears button up suits and everything. And now we're suggesting to them, okay, now you could be a little playful. How do you get that person to be like, okay, how do I be playful? Like, what does that mean for me?
I think that's so dependent on the so many variables, where you are, what's the
Sure.
expectation? Is this a friend situation? Are you in a business?
Yeah.
I,
Sorry.
I have more information about that.
Yeah, I guess it would be very different if they were at work versus at home. Maybe an example, I'll try to give a lot of detail, is somebody who's in the military, very structured, an officer, always, everything in their uniform is always perfectly placed and, has to be right. And then they come home to their kid and they need to be present with that kid. Maybe some playfulness would be useful there. How would you help that person transition from I was just at the Pentagon with a general and now I'm with my kid playfulness?
Let the
Uh,
child lead.
What does that mean? How do you do that?
You come into the child's room, see what they're doing, join them. And whatever they're doing, join them. Get down on their level, be with them, let them lead. Kids are naturally playful. You don't have to create the play, they do all the time. You just need to join in at their level without judgment
Yeah.
and be part of what it is. They want you to be a dog, be a dog. They want you to,
Yeah.
the Ken in their Barbie house, be the Ken in their Barbie house. Whatever it is, they'll tell you how to play with them by just how they are being in the moment.
What I love about that is it takes very little creativity or effort on your part then to sort of set the scene, do any of the upfront work. You're simply responding to what the offer, and that's a much lower lift.
And it's improv, isn't it?
Yes.
Because every time someone opens their mouth, it is an offer.
Hmm.
We just need to connect to it in ways that elevate it to being how you want to be in this world based on your values. I try to filter everything I say and do through my values. And that helps me a lot. And it also gives me a lot of confidence because I know what I'm about and I
Yeah.
know what I want. I can let go of who I am and how I want to be to connect with another person, especially a child in a situation where if I were a banker and my kid was coming home to my kid and they were playing in their room, I went in and I sat on the floor and asked them questions. What's happening? What's going on? They'll tell you. They will share that information with you because they want to play and they love when other people play with them. That's the
Yes.
highest level of involvement we can have with our children is letting them pick out what they want to do and playing with them, you know.
Yeah. Is it ever too late to start? So, like, you could do that when they're little kids, but teenagers, is it still okay to go in and sit and be like, what are you doing? And can I join in?
Sure, teenagers are unique, species.
Yeah.
So kind of hard. It depends on the teenager. But I know that for my adult children, I'm still seeing them and learning to see them where they're at. And instead of having my own agenda, trying to figure out what do they need? What's going on with them? How can I be a positive influence on them? How can I participate with them in ways that are pro-social and build our relationship? So I would say that that never ends. I mean, every relationship needs to be tended.
Mhm.
But for teenagers, that is hard. I have to say it's a very difficult time for them because they're trying to assert their independence, find out who they are. And that's usually reflective. It's more about rebelling against you. I think the same principles work using improv principles of listening, building connection, of yes anding, and also keeping boundaries. I mean, there's things in improv I won't do because it's inappropriate or not comfortable for me. Stating that, creating boundaries that are clear and make sense. And sometimes you just have to figure out what's really important to a teenager, then have that be a common goal with your boundaries set and your restrictions clear. Like,
Mhm.
for example, let's say that one of your kids had an important event and people gave them gifts. Or graduation from high school, let's say, and people gave them a lot of gifts. To me, it's really important to write thank you notes. That's not important to a teenager.
Yeah.
What's important to a teenager is having access to a car.
There might be a trade here.
So possibly holding the keys to the car that used to be on your son's desk or your daughter's desk, and it's you paid for the car, unless they paid for the car. That's a whole other dynamic. But it's like, Mom, where are my car keys? I know you want to go out. I want you to go out. Those thank you notes, you need to do at least 3 a day to get car keys.
Wow.
Reading, and that's not too punitive sounding or whatever, but
Yeah.
just bridging what they want kindly and gently with what you want.
And is that something you would discuss with them first, or is it like, here's the deal?
True confession, that was me. And
Cool.
yeah, I had requested that thank you notes be written for, it was like on the point where I was nagging, and I hate when I
Oh
get,
God.
I don't want to be
Yeah.
that thing person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of, here's the deal. You want the key,
Yeah.
you got to write a few letters.
I appreciate that, because we have realized in my family that democracy is not always the answer. Sometimes like, oh no, I guess I have to declare things.
Yeah. And that's totally appropriate. And actually, our
Yeah.
kids want us to be parents.
Yeah.
They want us to be parents for the rest of their lives. There
Mhm.
never will come a point, and I've learned this lesson recently, where you can just assume that you're friends with your child. There is always that element of you're the parent. And if we can rise to that, that means we need to access our wisdom as we get older as well, because we're always role modeling for our children, no matter what age we are. My mother's 103.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
And she has her faults and habitual patterns that didn't serve her well or serve us well as children. However,
Mhm.
she has so many wonderful ways that she is in the world, and aging gracefully is one of them. And you don't know how much I
Wow.
appreciate that. It's setting
Yeah.
up a role model for me. It is leaving a legacy of this is how you age. It inspires me to be that for my children. So I think we never stop being parents to our children.
That's beautiful.
And
Yeah, if we're lucky, right? If you were to be talking to somebody who found out, we're pregnant, we're going to be having a kid, how would you guide them into this space of being able to be playful and incorporating that into their relationship with their kid?
First of all, being a first-time parent is really scary. You have no idea what's to come. It's big from the birth on, being pregnant, birth, having the baby. There's no manual. I'm sure there are manuals, but there's no one size fits all ways to be a parent. But I think that is cultivating your own inner sense of how you want to be a parent and getting clear on that. It might come back to your values and how you want to be in this world. So I value playfulness. I value connection. So maybe valuing that. And if you don't have a good grip on being playful because you've had a traumatic past, I'm here to assure you, because I had a very traumatic childhood, you can overcome almost anything to get back to a playful place. But it will
Mm.
take work. It's work. Sometimes I think that having children is just nature's way of asking us to see ourselves more clearly,
Oh my God, yes.
have the courage to face our shortcomings and transform as best we can. Because
Yeah.
over again, we get hit with the reality of who we are, who our parents were, how we were trained, programmed to be a certain way in this world, judgmental or impatient or whatever it is that was modeled for us that we have now. We get a chance to break that. It's like my daughter told me, Mom, I've taken it upon myself to try to break the cycle of our ancestors. And I was like,
Oh, that's awesome.
so I'm doing that too. And my
Yeah.
mother, even at 103, she is sending ripples forward of
Great.
being able to handle difficult things.
one of the things I think comes out of all of this is hopefully breaking that generational trauma and having the kids not be stuck with the crap that the parents were holding.
Is to them for my emotional ineptitude, my emotional that I had because I hadn't worked through some of the trauma of my childhood. Once I started working through it, I was like, oh my God. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I definitely need to apologize to my kids for yelling at them, for, whatever it was, for being needy emotionally and not being the perfect parent. None of us are. They aren't
No.
either. I think it freed me to apologize to them in some way, to recognize it and say, I'm sorry that I wasn't always there for you. I'm sorry that I wasn't emotionally available when you needed me at times. Um, I I want to go forward being better. I have done better, but I'm going to keep doing better.
Beautiful thing to be able to have that space and safety to say, I wasn't perfect. I'm still not, but I'm trying. And maybe we can work on this together. Something like that would, yeah. Yeah. Being able to apologize to kids is about how you've been, what you've done. I think it's a powerful lesson for them too. It's like, oh yeah, mom or dad, they're not this shiny pedestal thing. They're a real person dealing with stuff.
I'll do it with just a Monday with my mom. I was helping
Yeah.
with something and I saw something confidential and I questioned her about it and she got defensive. I realized I had no right to ask her that question.
Yeah.
I apologized and I said, Mom, that's not my place. I wish I hadn't asked you that question. I realized that's none of my business. She was like, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can apologize right on the spot, is what I'm trying to get at. I've done it with kids
Yes.
where I've yelled or been frustrated with them and then said, that wasn't right. It's not a way to communicate that I value. And that's it. Just you don't have to keep going on and on. Just state your truths and do better next time. That's all we can do.
Definitely. That's all any of us got. Yeah, exactly.
State our truth and do better next time.
Hey. Well, Robin, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask about or didn't get to? Because I feel like I obviously monopolized a lot of the questions.
You were awesome. Well, just the thing about I had alluded to before about using improv to assess where kids were at or where adults were at. There's one exercise that I use specifically to assess where kids are at in a lot of areas that is low stakes to high stakes, which is least to most, aim
Okay.
least to most.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so you make a sign that says least and another sign that says most. You put them in opposite sides of a room. And
Uh-huh.
I've done this with up to like 50 people, but I've done it also with, 6, 7 people. So you start making statements and the statement might be, I like summer. If you like summer, go to most. If you don't, go to least, right? So they
Mhm.
use bodies to kind of vote. And you ask a lot of low stakes questions and then start slipping in little higher stakes questions like, I have an adult in the building who I trust. Least to
Oh.
most kids, once they get in the mode of moving to either place,
Yeah.
they'll keep moving to the place. They actually talk about things too. Like, let's say there is a statement, I'm becoming a better listener. Move to most, move to least.
Mhm.
What, anybody want to shout out an example of how they become a better listener? And so you're now doing therapy in a big group.
Yes.
Kids modeling. Ask the kids, you didn't like assemblies this year. Why didn't you like? I did it last year at the end of the year, and I had the teachers write down major events of the school year and had kids go least to most. And it was
Uh-huh.
so informative. Like, so one of the students who said, I don't like assemblies. Why don't you like assemblies? Well, I liked what they were presenting, but I get really scared in crowds.
Fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's like
So
during a survey.
I like to use improv games as self-assessment, but also seeing how flexible kids are, how willing they are to let go of their pre-planned idea. If you're doing one line at a time storytelling, are they listening? Are they good listeners?
Yeah.
Are they adding to the momentum of the story? How creative are they? How flexible are they? How willing are they to be silly, to be playful, to be, fanciful? And that tells you a lot about someone. You can really do a lot of informal assessments using improv with anyone.
Wow. I could just see because I know going through particularly the autism assessment and dyslexia and all those, They took a long time and they were very difficult for my kids just to go through all of that material and everything. And so it would be fascinating to turn those kind of things into an interactive play that you just sort of, oh, okay, I see this, I see this, I see this, therefore, rather than I have to ask you this long list of questions and this poor kid is like, I gotta get out of this room.
I know. So how can we actually, it's harder for me to assess a kid on a testing situation than it is to see them in their natural habitat,
Yes, totally. We commented to the assessors about that. I'm like, this is not who he is.
Yeah.
This is not who she is. You're putting them in this very strange environment, and then you're bombarding them with this stuff. They're shutting down.
One of our colleagues, applied improv colleagues in Singapore, and I'm not going to say her name correctly, lovely professor, developing a measure to look at people doing improv and then assessing their skills on all of the objectives and skill levels. She and I had a conversation, and she's looking to make it a more formal, researchable, and I'd like to take part in that. So I'm excited. Wow. She just sent me the scale, and I'm going to try to adapt it for my students. And then maybe in the future, we can go ahead and do a pilot test and how we can use an assessment to see where kids are at on a lot of different areas just through watching them do improv exercises.
That'd be so much better. I hope you're able to figure out a way to make that happen, because I think there would be a lot of people who would benefit from that experience.
It also would validate using improv as a way to build skills that we're teaching in other ways that aren't as effective. And I think that there's such a huge growth spurt with kids who are using it. I've seen this I've been doing this for like 10 years in schools, and I've just seen kids grow so much. And people might say, oh, that they're just maturing. It's like, no, they're learning how to be successful in relationships by experiencing these structured exercises that teach them that.
Yes. And that all goes back to Viola Spolin, who was the mother of the teacher of your teacher and now your work. So it's all full circle. Robin, thank you so much just for this conversation, but also just for all you're doing. It sounds awesome. It sounds so beneficial. I think there's a lot of people in the world who are going to have better experienced lives because of this. I greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Jeremy, and all you're doing to promote improv and to help neurodiverse people and to see that there's a avenue for everyone to learn and grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking more and learning how this project works out for you. I hope it was successful.
Thanks, Jeremy.
If you're interested in turning your parenting into play, check out the other videos at Improv Your Parenting's YouTube channel. And if you'd like to join our community, check us out on Improv Your Parenting at Substack.com. Thank you.